Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, and melting into your partner. I'm Noah Hook, and today we're looking at Together.
I think something's happening to us.
Whiskey for the pain.
This 2025 supernatural body horror film follows a couple on the rocks as they move to the countryside. With tensions already flaring, a nightmarish encounter with a mysterious, unnatural force threatens to corrupt their lives, their love, and their flesh forever. Together was written and directed by Australian filmmaker Michael Shanks in his feature-length debut. Shanks was inspired by his own long-term relationship and was thinking back on that period where two people really join together and become one. Your habits, emotions, and routines are all intertwined, and the lines of codependence and individual identity really start to blur.
And in a way that my partner said was a little upsetting to her that I was writing. But then she was like, oh, you know what helps? Like, I'm kind of being played by Alison Brie in a movie. That's pretty cool. And I'm like, yeah, that is pretty cool.
The film stars real-life married couple Dave Franco and Alison Brie as our distant, dysfunctional couple Tim and Millie. They loved getting to work together on such an intimate and intense film. But it was also very intensive to shoot. For a section of the movie, Brie and Franco wore a prosthetic that conjoined their arms together for hours on end, so the couple had to use their restroom together.
We really couldn't move even an inch away from each other because we didn't want to damage the prosthetic.
And also, when you have someone straddling you for 10 hours,
it's not the most
doesn't matter how
comfortable
petite
position.
they are.
Their full body weight.
Hurts.
I respect the commitment. The film features practical effects by Larry Van Joynhoven, as well as CGI developed by Framestore. So far, Together has a 90 and 76% on Rotten Tomatoes, along with a 3.3 on Letterboxd, so it's been one of the more acclaimed horror films of 2025. Y'all already know I fucking love body horror like From Beyond, Hellraiser, and Videodrome, so this immediately looked right up my alley. But I've also been let down plenty of times before, so I tried to go in with tempered expectations. But generally, I was quite pleased and even a bit surprised by Together. It was a lot funnier than I was expecting. It has a darkly comedic tone throughout a lot of the scenes. Not to the point where it all feels silly, but they bring in enough levity that you can have some fun with it, and it definitely delivers on the promise of body horror. The basic plot goes down like this. A longtime couple named Tim and Millie are in a rough patch. Tim is a struggling musician dealing with unresolved trauma, and he feels as though he's losing the little things that make him himself. Worse yet, they have moved out to the countryside away from their community for Millie's new job. So things are already shitty when they fall into a fucking hole in the woods and Tim drinks from an evil-looking puddle. They wake to find their legs have become stuck together, although they're able to rip them apart. While Millie goes to the store, he disassociates, and he moves backwards and forwards in motion with the car. He also reads up on a couple named Simon and Carrie who recently went missing in the area. They have some embarrassing spats about each other's flaws in front of flirty neighbor Jamie, who explains that the cave is the remains of a new age cult that fell into a sinkhole. I imagine that will come into play. Their sexual chemistry is also at an all-time low, maybe because Tim keeps trying to eat her hair at night. He tries to leave for a gig but is compelled back to Millie's workplace. They get it on in a middle school bathroom stall, and their Velcro genitalia get stuck to each other. Jamie witnesses this, so later she visits him to apologize. He gives her a big old glass of water as she confides in him about her doubts in their relationship. Jamie relates Aristophanes' theory of the nature and origin of Eros and encourages her not to let go of her other half, then reminisces on his relationship with his seemingly deceased husband. Uh-oh. Tim discovers that Simon and Carrie visited the same cave he and Millie fell into after noticing the same symbols surrounding the cave. and now she's unconsciously trying to get to him as well. He unsuccessfully tries to convince Millie that the two of them may suffer whatever fate Simon and Carrie did. That night, their bodies fully take control and force them together, at which point their arms fuse together. They snort a bunch of muscle relaxers to pause the fusion, and Millie uses a fucking sawzall to separate them. She goes to Jamie's house to get her car keys, while Tim rushes to the cave to find some answers. It's revealed that Jamie is in fact a complete fusion of two men who were members of the cult. Tim comes across the monstrosity that was once Simon and Carrie, which is what happened when Simon killed himself mid-fusion. Tim apologizes for all the resentment he felt over the years, finally realizing that she was the happy ending he'd been searching for all along. She talks him out of slitting his own throat, and they accept their fate. They strip down and dance to Two Becomes One by the Spice Girls, embracing each other and turning into an ooey-gooey body horror extravaganza. The movie ends a few days later when Millie's parents come to visit, only to find Tilly, their new non-binary daughter/son-in-law. I appreciated the way that the film connected relationships and this theme of merging into one with body horror. Sometimes the dialogue feels a bit too on the nose regarding entrapment and yearning to be free, but Franco and Brie do a great job of selling those lines. Their performances are the big takeaway for me. I wasn't sure how Franco would handle such an emotional role, but honestly he killed it. Tim and Millie are both very relatable characters. They've both got flaws and red flags, especially Tim, he's kind of like a big man baby. But at the same time, they are very caring and do clearly love each other. Jamie is also a fun inclusion. I think we all knew he was a bad guy the second we met him, so I'm glad they didn't treat his reveal as some giant twist. But Damon Harriman brought a lot of personality to the role. He kind of sold me on the whole thing, honestly. I'll have to make Kim watch this and see if she'd be down to fuse together. It seems kinda nice. I like that the lore of the cult is mostly kept secret, but I do wish we got just a teensy bit more insight into what happened to the other members. I also generally have a ton of questions about how this works. Here are a few stupid questions I wrote down while watching the film. Tim did in fact nut in Millie in that bathroom stall, so what if she was pregnant? Would they slowly add a third person into their fusion? Would it make them young again? What if a throuple all drinks the water together, or even a polycule? Does this only work between animals of the same species? Because we see those dogs at the beginning, but could we get a fly situation going on? I got a lot of questions for you, Mr. Shanks, so either hit me up or make a sequel. The body horror effects do look really solid. The final effects are kind of divine and beautiful. The arm fusion is classic Cronenberg type body horror. And the dog and cave creatures give us some great monstrous moments, something out of The Thing. And the whole body's melting together process is obviously reminiscent of The Thing, so I appreciated that they started with a clear homage to it in the beginning. Franco and Brie, and I assume their stunt actors, also did some great physical acting in the scenes when they are drawn to each other. There are some great moments of really uncanny movement. I will be honest in that I did expect a little bit more in the body horror department, particularly in the final transformation. Don't get me wrong, the effects looked good, but I expected it to be a bit bloodier and bonier and more practical, I guess. It kind of has a CG over top of other effects kind of look. It looks a little too shiny and new, if that makes sense. And I was hoping for it to at least look a little bit more unique. It was pretty much exactly what I expected it to look like. I also thought there were a few story elements that ended up a bit too unresolved. Tim's dead mom trauma felt pretty far out of left field, and after being touched on a few times, it never really became important to the plot. But generally, I did enjoy the screenplay. It captured a lot of very real anxiety about relationships, marriage, codependency, individuality, sexuality, and freedom. It dials those elements up to make it a bit more high stakes and a bit campy, but I'm sure most people could identify with Tim and or Millie at some point in their lives. Ultimately, I do think the film is pro-marriage, or at least pro-love. Yeah, there is going to be some growing pains as you and your partner adjust to existing together, but if you're lucky, the two of you can blend into one big happy unit that inherently understands its other half. And hey, when your partner tells you to go fuck yourself, you actually might be able to. All in all, I think Together is a smart, funny, heartfelt horror film. I wouldn't say I was blown away by it, but it hit or exceeded most of the marks I was looking for. If you're in the mood for some culty body horror, I'd say give it a go. In December, I'll be ranking my 10 favorite horror films of 2025, and at the moment, I'd say Together is in the running to make it onto that list, but I still have quite a few films to watch before we get to December. Well, that's about it. Have any of you seen Together, and if so, what did you think of it? Be sure to share your thoughts down in the comments. And also share what has been your favorite horror film of the year. I might just cover it next. Thank you all so much for joining me, and an extra thank you to my patrons and my channel members. I appreciate you all so much. And hey, if you enjoyed this, go check out the Patreon or consider becoming a channel member. Both are super helpful. They help keep the lights on around here. Yeah, I would really appreciate it. As always, I'm Noah Hook, and thanks for watching Hamburgers and Horror. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching my review of Together. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up with all my horror reviews. And if you want to help support the channel further, you should check out my Patreon account. You'll be able to vote for future movies and franchises I cover on the channel. Thanks y'all.